My wife smirked. I'm leaving you for other men. It's not my fault. I'm polyamorous now. I stayed silent as she humiliated me for 2 years. 10 years later, she called me. That poly stuff was just a phase. She laughed. The shock on her face was priceless when I told her who was handling her new fiancé's brutal divorce settlement. For 10 years, my wife wasn't just the person I was married to. She was the operating system for my life. We had inside jokes so old we forgot the origin. We could communicate across a crowded room with just a glance, and her presence was the one constant I never, ever questioned. She was my best friend, full stop. I know people say that, but for us, it was the literal truth. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and the foundation felt like bedrock. The first tremor happened at a friend's barbecue. Shed had a bit too much wine, and her ex-boyfriend from college was there. I watched from across the yard as she talked to him. It wasn't just talking, it was the way she laughed, a little too loud, the way she kept touching his arm to make a point. My brain tried to rationalize it away. It's just the alcohol. They're old friends, don't be that jealous guy. But my gut felt like it was filling with ice water. It was the first time in a decade I looked at my wife and felt like a stranger was looking back. That feeling lingered. For the next 6 months, there was a distance between us I couldn't quite name. It was subtle, like a radio playing just slightly off station. Then one Tuesday night, she sat me down on the couch. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I've had a revelation, she said, her voice weirdly formal. I've been doing a lot of reading and self-discovery, and I've realized who I am. I'm polyamorous. The word just hung there in the air. Polyamorous. I knew what it meant, but my brain couldn't connect it to the woman sitting in front of me, the one I shared a mortgage and a daughter with. My first thought wasn't even about sex. It was, what does this mean? Are we over? My mind immediately jumped to our daughter, a junior in high school, asleep down the hall. How do you blow up a family when your kid is in 11th grade? She went on, explaining that this wasn't a choice, it was an identity, that being able to love and, yes, bang multiple dudes, as she put it, was the only way she could feel like her true self. She presented it not as a negotiation, but as a fact I had to accept. The dilemma was instantaneous and crushing. I could either lose my family and my best friend in one fell swoop, or I could try to contort my entire understanding of love and commitment into a shape that didn't feel natural to me. I looked at the photos on the mantle. 10 years of a life I thought I understood. Losing all that felt like a death sentence. So, I made a choice. I told her I didn't get it, that it scared the hell out of me, but that I would try. I would try to learn. For her, for us, for our daughter. I thought maybe, just maybe, my best friend was still in there, and we could find a new path together. I guess my question for you guys is this. Has anyone else ever been faced with a choice where you have to either abandon your own core values or lose the person you love most? How do you even begin to make that work? So, I decided to try. For 2 solid years, I read the books, I listened to the podcasts, I did my damnedest to wrap my head around this new life. I told myself that love is about supporting your partner's happiness, even if it hurts. But it quickly became clear this wasn't about exploring a new relationship model. It was about dismantling me, piece by piece. The revelation Shed had wasn't just about her freedom, it was about my inadequacy, and she made sure I knew it. The first time felt like a physical blow. She was getting ready for a date, her third with this one guy. She was putting on a dress I'd never seen before, and I was just standing in the doorway of our bedroom, feeling like a ghost in my own home. I'd put on some weight over the years. I know that. I wasn't the guy she married at 25. As I watched her, she caught my eye in the mirror, then looked me up and down. There was no heat in her gaze, just assessment. I'm ready for the 200 pounds man I deserve, she said, not to me, but to her own reflection. My brain just short-circuited. What do you even say to that? It wasn't an argument. It was a verdict. My first instinct was to lash out, to defend myself, but I just froze. I realized in that moment that any reaction would be the wrong one. Yelling would make me the angry, controlling husband. Crying would make me the pathetic one. So I did nothing. I just stood there and took it. And the conclusion landed with cold certainty. This isn't about polyamory. This is a targeted attack. My body is now a symbol of her dissatisfaction. It got worse. The cruelty became more practical, more chilling. A few months later, we were talking about health insurance. Of all things, I mentioned something about getting older, about future what-ifs. She looked up from her laptop, her face completely blank. I need you to know, she said, with the same tone you'd use to remind someone to pick up milk. I don't want to take care of you when you get sick. There it was, the in sickness and in health clause of our life together, surgically removed. The thought process wasn't emotional, it was pure survival. She is not my partner anymore. She is a roommate who is actively planning for my eventual decline and making it clear she will not be there. The final straw wasn't loud or angry, it was quiet. She was going out again, and I, still trying to be the supportive husband, told her she looked beautiful. It was a genuine compliment. I was trying to find some small piece of our old dynamic. She barely looked at me, just gave a small, dismissive shrug. Thanks, she said, but you know, when men I find attractive compliment me, it makes me feel better than when you do. And that was it. That was the moment I stopped trying. She had taken my words, my affection, the last thing I had to offer, and told me they were worthless. It was a perfect, concise summary of the last 2 years. My love was now worth less than the validation of a stranger. The dilemma that had been tearing me apart for 2 years was finally solved. It was no longer a question of how much more I could endure. The real question was why I had let her destroy so much of me already. So, for anyone who's been in a similar spot, how do you know when you've crossed the line from fighting for your marriage to just being a willing participant in your own humiliation? When did you realize the person you loved was gone, and only the cruelty was left? Walking out the door of that house wasn't a moment of anger. I was just hollowed out. There was nothing left to fight for. I packed my things, and when I said goodbye, I genuinely meant it when I wished her well. I was sad. Sad that my best friend had become a stranger. Sad that our story had ended. But I believed her. I believed this was who she was. And I truly hoped she would go find the happiness that I apparently couldn't give her. Go dancing, singing, traveling, whatever. I figured my pain had at least served a purpose. It had liberated her to be her true self. That belief didn't last long. The ink on our separation agreement was barely dry when I heard through a mutual friend that she was all over the dating apps. Before the divorce was officially finalized, she was already in a serious relationship with a new guy. 6 months after I moved out, she was engaged. The speed of it was disorienting, like watching a car crash and fast forward. The real kick in the teeth came during a phone call about splitting up our remaining joint assets. It was a sterile, logistical conversation. Then, almost as an afterthought, she dropped it. Oh, by the way, she said, her voice casual, Mark and I are getting married. I was silent for a second, my brain trying to catch up. I finally managed to ask, so, how does that work with the polyamory thing? Is he okay with that? There was a little laugh on her end of the line. It was light, airy, and the most brutal sound I've ever heard. Oh, that, she said, that was just a phase. I'm not poly anymore now that I'm with him. I guess I just needed to get it out of my system. A phase. That one sentence vaporized the entire foundation of my grief. The 2 years of cruelty, the insults about my weight, the dismissal of my love, the nights I spent trying to stretch my heart into a shape it wasn't meant for. It wasn't for some profound, unchangeable identity. It was a bus ticket. An excuse she used to get from point A married to me to point B fucking someone else. And then she just threw it away once she arrived at her destination. My sacrifice, my pain, my attempt to be a good man, it was all meaningless. She didn't just break my heart, she made me a willing accomplice to my own replacement. It's been 10 years. I've done the work. I've been to therapy. I've built a new life. But that betrayal lodged a piece of ice in my chest that has never fully thawed. It changed how I trust. It made me question my own judgment. Because how could I have been so blind? I gave her more of myself than anyone on this planet. And she systematically dismantled me so she could go sleep with a smaller dude. I used to wish her well. I don't anymore. I think she deserves every ounce of misery life can throw at her. So here's my question. Reddit. And it's the one I can't seem to solve. How do you heal from a wound when you find out, years later, that the knife was coated in a poison you never knew was there? How do you forgive a betrayal that retroactively turned your past into a joke?